Thank you. Thank you. The green one.
Yeah, and if one return, that one.
Thank you. And I just want to say, firstly, I'm so sorry for not being able to speak any Danish. It's so embarrassing that the 400 people in front of me can speak English and understand English. And I arrived yesterday thinking, maybe I could understand a bit of Danish, and then you started speaking. No chance. We all dream growing up. We all dream. And I think whether you're dreaming about becoming an astronaut or a doctor or anything, what really underpins those dreams is the desire, I think, to change the world in some small but profound way. Even if that is the world that's immediately around you, that dream to change the world in some small and profound way is what we dream about as a youngster. And then this happens. This was me sort of 2 years ago, in and amongst a load of people at Oxford Circus Station in London. It's like that every single day. And for an hour or two on my way to work, I'd be in the middle of that, sharing sharp elbows with other sort of fairly miserable people. And I'd do that to go to a job that was a good job. It was a good job. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't really enabling me to change the world, even that immediate world. And worse still, over time, I think it meant I was completely disconnected from all the values that inspired those dreams. And so what do? Well, you say, fuck no. Fuck no? Hell no. Danish. And I quit. I didn't really have a plan. I made one promise at this point, and that was to spend 6 months not working. I wanted still to earn, and I wanted to earn a value that was measured in something other than notes and coins. That was my first week. Start to finish Breaking Bad, I finished the whole thing. And I can tell you, if you're feeling pretty shit about yourself, spend a week getting to a point where the most important person in your life is a crystal meth dealer, and you'll feel even worse. I knew I needed to do something with this 6 weeks. The question was, 6 months, sorry. The question was, what should I do? What would you do? Maybe you'd travel the world. I think that was probably top of my list, and I suggested it to my girlfriend, who has a very good job and enjoys her job, 9 to 5, and the prospect of me hopping on a plane and coming back in 6 months did not go down particularly well. So I thought about those values that I was disconnected from, and I wondered sort of what they were. And for me, being curious is vital. When I'm curious, life and everything I see seems to have a whole new palette of colors, a whole new set of details. It's all so well defined. Life is beautiful when you're curious. When you're exploring your conscience, when you're being conscientious, again, that for me gives the heart in some weird way some kind of confident, subtle but rhythmic beat. It feels like life is purposeful when you're exploring your conscience. And creative, well, that's just the bit of flair I think everyone should walk around the world exploring. That's the bit that should enable you to look back on what you've done with a wry smile because you did it with a flair. They were the 3 things I really, really wanted to explore. So I made an offer to the world. It's very, very simple. I posted an advert on Gumtree, which generally is the arse end of the internet, but the offer was simple. If anyone needs any help, I'll help, and I'll do it for free, especially if your needs are fun, different, or morally deserved. Just 3 words I felt might steer people a little bit to those 3 values that I was really looking to explore. I didn't say anything about who I was. I didn't feel like that was important, and 2 years later, I still don't think that's important. I think what's important is the idea of offering free help in this instance. A few minutes later, literally a few minutes later, I got a reply, and it was from a couple down in Plymouth on the south coast of England, and they explained that last year, me and my husband gave our spare room to a homeless man. He's now got a job, and he's rented his own place. The request for me was to try and help them find someone else they can help, someone else they can house. Within 2 minutes, I'd got the most unbelievable insight into a couple exploring their own values, being inspiring. It was unbelievable. As it happened, Jose, their original tenant, turned up 2 days later, having lost his job. The intention's there. The next day I had a few emails, but this one really stood out to me. She was a photographer called Talia. She said, I'm a photographer and I'm in need of some feedback. I'm low on confidence. My friends and family say that it's great, but what do they know? They love me. I just thought, everyone can resonate with that in some way. And in saying that, I loved her, so what did I know about her work? I loved it, but I'm no photographer. I shared all her work with 5 or 6 of the most iconic, most up-and-coming photographers in the UK, and within 48 hours, I had a load of replies. And the feedback was generally really good, which was good. Imagine that, forwarding emails, you work shit, give up. The feedback was great, so her confidence hopefully did that. And actually, there was a load of good advice as well, some very practical advice. Then there was Vince, the hypnotist. I'm an IT manager, but I want to be a stage hypnotist. I need practice. Will you be my guinea pig? So inviting a stranger into your mind, into your subconscious to do whatever they wish seemed like a fantastic idea. So I invited Vince round, and Vince, I learned over a half hour having a coffee with him, and I were on a pretty similar journey. We were trying to change something. We were trying to shift from the circumstances of our former selves, an IT manager, a commuter, to something that they were inspired by. The difference between me and Vince is that he knew what he wanted to be. He wanted to be a stage hypnotist. And as a stage hypnotist, you need charisma, you need character, you need some kind of showmanship, you need all these things. And Vince had none of them. None of them. I realized at that point that given how inspired and how enthused he was by the prospect of being a stage hypnotist, and the fact he traveled 2 hours to get to my home, if his hypnotism didn't work on me, I damn well needed to pretend it did. So over the next hour, I jumped around my living room pretending to be an elephant. I, at one point, had to imagine there was life with no number 3. So he started putting me through these math questions without the number 3. And then every now and again when he did this, I just had to completely forget what I was talking about and go silent. That was bliss. That was easy. But seeing the look on his face when he realized or thought he'd hypnotized me was unbelievable. And still to this day, performing, if you like, a white lie in that situation might not have been the best thing to do. But he went away and carried on exploring what he wanted to explore. There was a couple who asked me if I could help them name their baby, which is unbelievable. You've got an anonymous man online, and we all know what we should do with anonymous men online. Ignore them. It was a simple request. Can you help me name my baby? They were struggling to come up with their name themselves, so I called their baby Zeus. They called their baby something else, but... By this point, I'd started to blog about what I was doing. I try and be very open and honest about who I meet, what their problems are, and how we go about trying to help them. And I picked up a bit of, some people read the blog, some people followed me on Facebook and Twitter, and when I got this request, I just found this memory card. Here's a picture from it. I assume it's the owner. Can you help me find him? And amazingly, completely other story, but I was actually accidentally and illegally in Bosnia at the time I got this text. But I tweeted the request and I put it on Facebook, and 45 minutes later, Ollie had been found via Twitter and then also via Facebook. Someone from work had called him just as he was going through the door of his flat saying, just seen on Twitter, someone's found your memory card. And then as he walked into his flat, his housemate said, I've just seen on Facebook that someone's seen your memory card. Which is unbelievable that, a stranger out of however many million can be found in an hour or so. And I started to realize that this community that was being built around my blog is perhaps something that I could lean on more and more. But it's not all plain sailing. I got this request after a few months. I'm 17 and I'm trying to earn money to afford university next year. My parents can't help me, and I've decided to earn £100 an hour as an escort, as a prostitute. It's that or £6 an hour as a waitress. Can you help me find trustworthy clients? I don't. What's oxymoron in Danish? When I first read this, I thought, this is the first instance of someone seeing my blog or advert and taking the piss. And I got on the phone to her, and sadly, that was far from the case. The year before, the government had increased tuition fees by 3 times. And there was a whole generation of people like this girl who had spent their whole childhood assuming they'd afford to get a degree, and then suddenly, just like that, they couldn't. We spoke a few times. I tried everything I could to offer her help earning money in any other way. She decided to do what she did, and she ended up no longer replying to my emails. So I can only hope that she was too busy working in the cafe. But ultimately, I started to realize this thing of this thing I was doing was actually still, full of responsibilities in some way, shape, or other. I got this other email from actually a lady whose husband, Ian, she was emailing on behalf. My husband, Ian, lost touch with his British father. His name is Frank Renton. Can you help us find him? I tried in the few weeks before, I had a few similar requests and tried and failed to find the people I was looking for. So I didn't really promise anything, but I said I'd give it a shot. And after about 48 hours, I'd subscribed to all those kind of people's finding websites that you realize once you've subscribed to for 5 years. And eventually found a little article in a local paper. It was actually a scanned article from the 60s that was talking about a local football match and explained that the referee was a guy called Frank Morley Renton, Morley being this Frank's middle name. So with the location of that football match and all his details, I actually tracked him down. And it was 2 o'clock in the morning at the time, and I was on my laptop in bed, and I woke up my girlfriend, a little less aggressively. And I said, I found Ian's father, to which she said, who the fuck is Ian? Frank's son. She went back to sleep. But very quickly, it could well have only been 30 seconds, I realized that what I had found of Frank was actually his death certificate. The next day, I picked up the phone to someone I'd never met and told them that their father was no longer alive. And that's an experience that I still can't really explain. Margot, beautiful little 2-year-old who was suffering from leukemia, they were holding a swab event, so an event in Notting Hill in London where they were inviting people to take a swab to see if they could be a bone marrow match and donate bone marrow. We heard about this and put a message out on Facebook and invited people to head down to that area the following day. And we had 80 people turn up and dish out 2,000 flyers around the local area to try and get people to that swab event, which was absolutely beautiful because, again, that free help guide community thing seemed to really sort of come together. And to have 80 strangers turn up at, in a random place in London with 12 hours notice was unbelievable. And this is a sort of final example. It's most recent, a couple of months ago. This is just the most amazing family. Trudy, the mum, is just beyond inspiring. And Eden, in the bottom left, has this really, really, really rare disorder of the diaphragm. Imagine hiccups 150 times a minute. They get so bad they induce seizures. And she's only the 53rd person in the world with it and the youngest. Because it's so rare, they could only track down one specialist who was in Colorado, and so the request for help was to raise £4,000 as quickly as possible to get them out there, and they're out there now, and treatment is going amazingly. And I think out of all the little things I've done here and there over the last 2 years, helping that family is definitely the one I'm proudest of. But this is the most common request I get, just a simple request to help rather than of help. And that, simply put, is what is inspiring me to change that 6 months and in some way keep this free help guide persona going for the rest of my life. And in fact, sounds a bit airy-fairy, but long after I've gone. I like the idea of a very simple offer of free help done under this veil of anonymity, direct to people rather than via big causes or organizations. I like that idea. It served an incredible purpose for me in terms of exploring these three things. I walk around life, and life is vivid. My heart beats in a way that it never has, and I've enjoyed every moment of it, even the tough bits. Giving is happiness. Michael touched on this. Happiness is giving. This is not new. And not only is it not new, we've known it for thousands of years. In fact, it's so obvious, it's a complete injustice to all of you to have that slide up there. But I can safely say that the person who has been helped the most from this free help guide project is me, by miles. It's a mindset, not an obligation. I have friends that work for companies that have this initiative where you can go and spend a day or two volunteering in your local community. Now, that's better than nothing, but only marginally. The reason is, if as an employee you have the option to go and volunteer in your local community, and some of your companies may do this, what is the proposition to me as an employee? Is it to go and volunteer for a day, or is it to spend a day not in the office? For me, that is an example of exploration of happiness and/or employee engagement, if we want to bring it back to the workplace, that is so ineffective, it's just a shame. And as Tim touched on, as Michael's touched on, happiness, fulfillment, all these things that are very much interlinked, absolutely have to be embedded to the culture, into the culture of a workplace. They absolutely cannot be little dots in the diary for the odd day to explore these things. It has to be part of the culture. And finally, be uncomfortable. For me, comfort over time is trauma to the soul. Whether you're getting yourself out of a comfortable situation, a nice job, a nice routine, a safe routine, or putting yourself into a situation of discomfort, you absolutely cannot be comfortable for very long. Again, I think that is just so obvious, but when we challenge ourselves to actually do it, it's a whole new ball game. And obviously know your boundaries. And I'm not just saying that because it's obvious. I'm saying it because I learnt mine last week. Interestingly, I've watched a documentary about adult babies. And when I got the email, actually the first bit said, the real email said, "I'm an adult baby, can you help?" And actually, adult babies generally are people who, for some reason or another, looking for a way to kind of regress into a state at which you're cared for. It's not necessarily like that. So I got on the phone to this guy, and he just went, "I want you to wipe my bum." At which point, dear Peter, hell fucking no. Thank you. Tack.
That was really moving, really. I had it just like this morning when I listened to Sjur, I was having tears in my eyes. And that's a good sign.
Good.
It's a good sign.
Happy tears.
You have a potential here, don't you? I mean, being anonymous, just being the free help guy, you could franchise this. Instead of being just you could make a movement. We could have hundreds, thousands of free help guys sitting all over the world and do good for others. Is that an intriguing thought for you?
It's the most obvious thought, and it's very intriguing. And actually, truth be known, there's a few free help guys now already, which is nice. So I'm sort of dipping my toes. Being completely honest, and I'm not particularly proud of this, it's become such a personal and important part of my life, and letting go of it is definitely the thing that needs to happen for the greater good. But it's actually, for me, it's not actually that easy. So I'm exploring ways, because I think, for reasons I still don't particularly know, I think there's something in here that does seem to sort of capture the imagination. And I do think that anonymity is a big part of it. I'd love to see it all around the world, eventually.
But right now, it's a personal thing for you. It's your baby. So have you? So what's your plan? Will you do this full time?
No. So after that 6 months, my sort of mission since then is to try and find work that balances with this, that frees up some more time to do this more and more. And even that work is now completely inspired by the experience I've had through sort of being the free help guy. So that again is sort of one of my ambitions now, just to find that balance.
So you are still in the doing good business, but not only as the free help guy.
Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to set up a charity fundraising platform, which is, as I say, exactly as a result of the things I've learned doing this. So yeah, you know, as going back to that point of the sort of selfishness of selflessness. You know, this idea of the value intrinsically to helping others. You know, again, it's whatever my career may be in my working life is as a result completely of my experiences here.
But even though that you're not just helping others and also helping yourself,
Yeah,
I think it's okay, isn't it? Yeah. The free help guy.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. Great.